ray of hope flickers in the sky. A tiny star lights up way up high. All across the land dawns a brand new morn. This comes to pass when a child is born.
Somebody asked, were you there in their journey? Did you ever stop to give them a second look? Do you have time for their stories?
मेरा नाम संदीप है। मैं जब 7 साल का था, मेरे पेरेंट्स ट्रीटमेंट के लिए आए थे अपने केम हॉस्पिटल पे। तो जाते जाते मैं मिस हो गया यहाँ पे दादर में। मिस हुआ तो मैं दादर में 1-1.5 साल रहा। वहाँ पे बहुत दिक्कतें थी हम लोग को, और हम लोग की जो परिस्थिति इतनी गंदी थी कि कपड़े उपड़े कुछ नहीं थे, कोई खाने को नहीं देता था। तो हम लोग बॉटल बेच के वो जो पैसा आता था उससे अपना पेट भर लेते थे। कई वो पैसा लेके हम होटल में भी जाते थे तो हम लोग को अंदर नहीं लेते थे, बाहर ही खाना देते थे और बोलते बाहर बैठ के खाओ। और सोते थे तो पुलिस वाले आते थे, मारते थे, मार के भगाते थे। तो हम लोग जो फ्लाईओवर्स होते थे उनके नीचे जाके ऐसी चुपके से ऐसी जगह बना लेते थे कि कहीं यहाँ पे हम लोग को कोई ढूंढ ना पाए।
Carry me like you are my brother. Love me like a mother. Will you be there?
As we rush through our daily lives, taking hurried strides to our destination, we pass by people who don't count as people to many of us. We shoo them, shun them, and even shunt them to avoid contact with them, only because they are the antithesis of our notions of a beautiful, bright and bonny children. These are the street children who have no place to call it their home and no one to call their own. Many start their lives here and also end their lives here. These are the nameless and faceless children who are written off as hopeless future of the country, with no address and no number in our demographic profile. They are viewed with disgust, treated with distrust, and abused with total disregard. While most of us would not give them a second glance, there are kind souls who go looking for such lost souls. Father Elson Barreto, as a young seminarian, knew his calling when he heard the cries of the uncared, abandoned children. While most youngsters love to roam the streets to kill time, he scouted the streets to give life to the left-outs and dropouts.
A group of us got together and just went around meeting the boys, just talking to them. And we would go to the railway stations and collect the rag pickers, and the boys were out on the streets. And every day we went and met the boys. And then when we noticed that they had skin infections and all sorts of other sicknesses, we started taking them to doctors. So we became famous on the stations as Dr. Saab. You know, Dr. Saab is coming, he takes us to other doctors. A little gateway was opened, especially in hospitals and with doctors who would give us a little leeway and allow us to enter their clinics and treat these boys free.
Father Xavier Devdas, a social worker turned priest, becomes a father to the fatherless. He became their buddy to earn the trust of these rough and tough boys.
In the early 80s, we saw a lot of children coming onto the street, especially the metropolitan cities, because of the urbanization and poverty. And the Churchgate station itself had so many children who were not attended to. We involved ourselves as students to understand this situation of street children. And in those days, this was not even an issue for public or others. So we discovered a lot of things about them, spending hours and hours silently watching, sometimes intervening, a little smile, sharing a cup of tea, cutting their nails, or telling little stories. We befriended them. So they began to confide in us, and they would come for little needs, especially when they need something, they're sick and so on. It was a big learning experience for us.
These children fall under two categories: children on the street and children off the street. The former being mostly runaway kids and the latter with no roots. For these lost children, street is their home, school and workplace. It is not surprising then that they become street smart even before they turn 10. They know the ways of the world and the waywardness of the system. Father Xavier gives a reality check.
These children had one thing in common, that is they were ruthless and rootless. They collected scrap and they became scrap themselves. Life was becoming so meaningless and they in turn began to reject the society. So they built a community, a life of their own in total freedom. And they realized also that the free food is distributed to the temples, the timetable was packed. Certain days were marked for certain churches or mandir or dargah. Secondly, what we also realized, the world was very small for them. They were like the most free people on earth. They would go from here to Bangalore in a question of 24 hours, just see the film and come back, or go to Delhi for the inauguration of Asian Games or something. I mean, because the railways was their shelter. Their shelter was on wheels. Because that was a safe place where they could get money, they could get water, they could sleep there, they could see places, they could meet people, and they lost nothing. Even a TC made them get down, they could get into another train and move the opposite direction, made no difference. And the life was just fun in one way. On the other side, it was always alone, rejected, unwanted, meaningless. And in this scenario, we began the work and started the shelter Don Bosco. And they opened this shelter as an open house. They could come and fulfill their small needs like having a bath or resting or washing clothes. Much is done.
Fortunately, the world is not so cruel or heartless. There are men with hearts and guts for these countless children who find them and mold them into people with character. These Good Samaritans are the silent sentinels of the Don Bosco Institution in Mumbai who scout the streets to bring these abandoned children home. They are picked up from the street and given shelter in their destitute home called Shelter. Father Joachim Fernandez, their friend and coach, shares his brotherly compassion on these children.
Most of the time when we think of street children, I think we always think this child is totally downtrodden and just he's wayward. But I think if you go to the psychology part of what the child goes through, the trauma which he has and how he copes up with the whole situation on the street. Sometimes he'll have suicidal tendencies, sometimes very aggressive, sometimes he has lost hope in life, he's very lonely on the street. Then there are gangs who actually will pick them up for child labor, abusing them. You will have gangs picking up them for many nefarious activities. And at that moment, the child is unaware of the whole world because he's too small to understand what the world out there. And I think that's the time when the child is coming out from the module, and if he doesn't get a proper hand-holding done and mentoring by an institution or by the general public, I think that's the place where he is lost. And then show them the light. And to show them the light, you need courage first to handle them. And you need a spiritual growth first to become like Mother Teresa. She said even there are 1,000 maggots in the human being. He or she is still a child of God. And you need that courage to remove the maggots out. You need that courage to pull that child out, get back into the home and nurture them with love. And that as human beings, we still have a heart to love these little children.
Every act of love, God put a million doors in the world for His love to walk through. One of those doors is you.
Getting them off the streets and bringing them home has been a harrowing yet gratifying experience for the staff of Shelter Don Bosco. It was a real challenge learning to come down to the level of these street urchins, so to speak. Not everyone can go that extra mile to walk with them and talk with them. One noble soul who spent over 20 years doing the rounds of the streets as a daily routine is Gracie, who became more than a mother and a sister to these kids. She is their nurse, their nutritionist, their counselor and confidant.
जब से मैं स्ट्रीट चिल्ड्रन के साथ काम इसके लिए कर रही हूँ कि सब जन उनको रिजेक्ट करते, कोई उनको केयर नहीं करते, तो उन बच्चों के साथ मैं एवरी डे जाती हूँ. मेरा 21 स्टेशन है, हार्बर लाइन, सेंट्रल लाइन, वेस्टर्न लाइन, तो वहाँ पर उनका अड्डा रहते हैं. ऐसी जगह उन लोग पसंद करते जैसे प्लेटफॉर्म में एंडिंग हो, जैसे रेलवे ट्रैक के बाजू में कोई नहीं आ सकते, ना पुलिस ना पब्लिक, क्योंकि उन लोग ज्यादा करके एडिक्शन करते, सोल्यूशन लेते, गांजा लेते. इन बच्चों मौत से कभी नहीं डरते उन लोग. आज के लिए जीते, सिर्फ पैसा कल के लिए जरा बचत करके रखो, सेविंग करो। सेविंग बुक भी मैंने बहुत सारे बच्चों को निकाल के दिया। मगर इनका डायलॉग क्या होता है, कल किसने देगा मम्मी, आज क्या आज हो गया ना, कल कल हो जाएगा। उनके साथ रह के लैंग्वेज भी मेरा चेंज हो गया। जमीन चटाई है, आसमान हमारी चादर है, उनका डायलॉग यही है। और एवरीडे उन लोग कमा भी लेते पैसे, जिस दिन कमाएंगे तो उस दिन उन लोग खाना खा लेते, जिस दिन नहीं मिला तो उन लोग ऐसे भूखे रहते। कुछ कुछ बच्चे 2-2 दिन भी भूखे ही रहते बच्चे। तो पहले मैं उनको, बेटा कुछ खाएंगे आप, कहाँ से आए, तो टाइम लगता है वो मुझे समझने के लिए। जब भी उन लोग बीमार पड़ते, स्टेशन पे सोया हुए रहते, कोई उनको देखते नहीं और डेथ हो जाते हैं। और कुछ बच्चे तो आप पैर चला जाते हैं, कोई लावारिस में जाता है। आज तो कोई बॉडी लेने भी नहीं कोई नहीं आता, क्योंकि स्ट्रीट में बहुत सालों से रहते हैं। और इन बच्चों से मैं बात करती हूँ, काउंसलिंग करती हूँ, ग्रुप काउंसलिंग, इंडिविजुअल काउंसलिंग, क्योंकि उनकी हालत देख तो मुझे तो रोने भी आते हैं, क्योंकि कोई उनके तरफ इतना ध्यान नहीं देते और अपनी बात शेयर नहीं करते किसी के साथ, क्योंकि उनका बात सुनना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। पहला तो मेरा है उनका मेडिकल करना, मेरे पास फर्स्ट एड बॉक्स रहती है। उनका जो जख्म होता है तो उसका ड्रेसिंग वगैरह करना। अगर ज़्यादा कोई बीमार है तो मैं गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल में लेके जाती हूँ। और मेरा नेटवर्किंग गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल के साथ अच्छा है और मुझे हेल्प भी करते हैं गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल, जो सोशल वर्कर हो गया, डॉक्टर्स हो गया, बहुत हेल्प करते हैं इन बच्चों के लिए। और मुझे स्ट्रीट में जो टीबी बच्चे मिलते हैं, HIV पॉजिटिव मिलते हैं, तो उनको कुछ फैसिलिटी नहीं मिलते, वो सड़क पे रहते, खाना बराबर टाइम पर नहीं मिलते, दवाई नहीं मिलते, तो ज़्यादा दिन जी नहीं पाते। तो वैसे बच्चों के लिए मदर टेरेसा होम है खारगर में, तो वहाँ पर मैं रेफ़र करती हूँ। इन बच्चों को पहले स्ट्रीट से हटाना मेरा काम है। उनको एवरीडे उनके साथ मैं कॉन्टेक्ट पे रहती हूँ और सब बच्चे मुझे मम्मी बोलते हैं, मैं उनको बहुत प्यार करती हूँ। उनको शेल्टर में रहना है तो उनको काउंसलिंग करना पड़ता है, डायरेक्ट तो कोई नहीं आते, तो उनको प्रिपेयर करना पड़ता है स्टेट में। फिर शेल्टर ऐसा एक संस्था है, डॉन बॉस्को, एजुकेशन दे सकते हैं, आपको फ्यूचर अच्छा बन सकते हैं, तो उनको मैं यहाँ पर लेके आती हूँ। तो यहाँ पर रह के उन लोग पढ़ाई करते हुए 18 ईयर्स तक, तो ताकि उन लोग का लाइफ आगे बढ़े। फिलहाल अभी 5 लड़के कॉलेज में पढ़ाई कर रहे। एक लड़का रसल नाम का है, दादर में मुझे रैक पिकिंग करते हुए, नशा करते हुए मिला, तो वो अभी कॉलेज कंप्लीट किया और उसको प्रोफेसर बनना है। यही तो सबसे बड़ा मेरे लिए रिजल्ट है। अगर वो स्ट्रीट में रहता तो ये कुछ नहीं बन सकता है। हम सपोर्ट सिस्टम करेंगे, बच्चे आगे बढ़ेंगे, उन लोग अपने आप। कभी उनको स्ट्रीट छोड़ गया तो उनका लाइफ बन जाएंगे।
Alongside this outreach work, Shelter devised another unique way of finding the street children by holding an open day program called Mela, which brought in children from far and wide in hordes. This confirmed the belief in their work that there are many desperate for shelter and dying for love, and the lack of both. Father Xavier recalls those early days in 1987 and the expansion into related areas.
Street, children are found on the street, so we need to be on the street. 19th to 20th was the Mela. So it was fixed. Whatever happened, this date was fixed. So people not only from Mumbai, but even from outside, these children would come there to attend, but this was the common place. It was their platform. They could sing, dance. They were the chief guests and they were the audience and they were the performers. It was their program and went on for hundreds of melas. So we had almost about 25 outreach points in Mumbai where our volunteers, our paraprofessionals, our friends would be there. And then if there is a need, they could come to the drop-in center, which was their second address, where they could come, sit down, save their money, rest a little and go. So we set up the research center. So we could collect data, we could find out the real reasons and what we could be done, studies and so on. As we were setting up these things, we realized almost 80-90% of these children on the street were addicted to substance abuse. So we needed to address that first before we could even think of any other program. So we developed a separate specialized program at Maria Shana at Lonavala, where almost about 5 to 6 months we would have these children first detoxify and after that rehabilitation. When they are ready, bring them back into the shelter or a training centers.
Father Gregory Almeida, director of Shelter, gives an overview of their exemplary work.
When these children who come from the street to shelter, we have children with different problems, and we have to cater to all these problems. So first is the educational problems, and therefore we send them to different vernacular schools. and same time we also have to take care of their emotional problems, because that is the first stage that we look into. So we have counselors who for 15 days to 1 month we take care of their emotional problems, and then slowly once they get an interest of going to schools, then we put them in different BMC schools, and the more intelligent or more smarter the guys, we try to put them in English medium schools. That is part of their growing. So we try to focus all these aspects, because these children who are come from a deprived families, when they are given all these opportunities in different settings, they are able to flower after a certain age. So everything falls in place.
They are enrolled into good schools, trained in various skills and also nurtured in their special talents like music. This helped them nurture their untapped talent and at the same time curb their unwarranted vices. Sports was an effective way to expend their energies.
The street children don't like structures. They are coming from unstructured life, and the moment you put them into a structured life, they are actually waiting to go out. And I think what keeps them inside Don Bosco shelter is only, I think, the aspect of love. One of the things to channelize their energy, because they are sometimes very aggressive, they have gone from emotional hurts, they've got bandages, they've got wounds which take a long time to heal, and I channelize their energies into arts and craft and dancing and quite a lot of co-curricular activities. My whole idea was to get them into the main playing field, sending them abroad or to become part and parcel of the MDFA, and then taking them into the FIFA tournaments a little later. Deepak, one of the boys, we coached him up, trained him up, and today he's playing for the Super Leagues. And I think it's a great achievement to see this young child today.
These boys are given the complete home experience with emphasis on extracurricular activities and even a summer camp added for their exploration and exhilaration.
One of the annual features that we have every year, which the boys also look forward, is the summer vacation. We make it a point that the children, like the other normal children, also go out for a vacation. It is not just a vacation just used for a sightseeing, but we have a camp. So we have scouting, we have mountaineering. So it's well planned. And we make sure that during this summer camp, the child is also given an exposure to different realities that exist outside. We try to explore the world, explore his inner talents. So we have karate classes, we have dancing classes, we have dramatics, we have singing classes. So we have different types of competition during this summer camp. And we took them to aquarium, then we took them to cinema halls. So the child should not be felt just because I am poor, I am deprived, or I am the other children are enjoying all these facilities. And we have a lot of people who also come forward to help us in planning these programs and making sure they have a good time.
Carrying out this yeoman's service for the past 3 decades, the staff have not only rescued the children from danger and death, but have been instrumental in shaping them into young men who excel in life. Their aim was not just to provide basic needs and education, but to transform their lives. Shelter goes all out to extend support to the boys by not only setting up specialized centers exclusively for them to enhance their skills further, but also tying up with the universities, colleges, as well as companies for their future development.
We always tell them after 10th, go for 12th, after 12th, become a graduate, after graduation, specialize. There's another boy who is completed his engineering this year. Don Bosco has been backing him up, paying his fees, and he'll be the first engineering student who has completed his engineering from Don Bosco shelter. We have got lots and lots of them who have finished their automobiles, they have finished their painting, their printing press. You have a whole lot of guys who have been placed in the industry and pretty doing well. Today you see many of the street children through our placement services have been employed, and Don Bosco engages with the employers to see that they get their just wages. I don't remember the name of the boy. We had trained him into computers, and today he's opened a computer center with around 20 computers all sponsored, and he's actually working to uplift the children, marginalized children, because what he had got in shelter, today he's giving it out to the world. And I think that's an achievement children can become if as adults we mentor them properly, if we love them and we give our best, especially for these disadvantaged children.
Let's hear it from some of the bright boys who dream big and desire more. Here's Shriraj Kazi Sheikh.
My story just ऐसा है कि जब मैं छोटा था तब आई लिविंग कोलकाता, मम्मी पापा जब मुंबई में आए तो उनमें बहुत बड़ा झगड़ा हुआ बात, फिर मम्मी अलग हो गया और पापा अलग हो गया। फिर दोनों ने सोचा कि अब बच्चे भी अलग अलग ले ले। पापा ने भी बड़ा को ले लिया, तो मम्मी ने भी दूसरी शादी की है। तो मुझे मारते थे, रोज बहुत मारते थे, ऐसा मारते हैं मैं कभी सहन नहीं किया। मैं बहुत जीत करके शेल्टर डॉन बॉस्को में आया, तो मेरा आर्ट्स ये सब चालू होना, फिर मेरा मतलब पेंटिंग और ज़्यादा बढ़ने लगा। फिर मुझे बहुत कुछ अपॉर्चुनिटी मिला यहाँ से। फिर मुझे अच्छे अच्छे ग्रेड मिलते रहे, फुटबॉल भी अच्छा खेलने लगा। जब मैं छोटा था 8वीं में, तब मुझे एक स्ट्रीम में लिया था नाम इसी। उनके पास इतना सारा कला था, तो मैं भी सोचा था कि मैं भी बन पाऊंगा ऐसा क्या। जैसे कि वो म्यूजिशियन है तो मैं भी म्यूजिशियन बनूंगा और आगे कुछ भी बन सकता हूँ, जैसे कि म्यूजिशियन है तो डांसर। और उनका एक पेंटिंग मैंने बनाया था, मोनालिसा। मैं सोचता था कि मेरा ड्रीम है कि सबसे वर्ल्ड आर्टिस्ट पेंटर बनूँ, सबसे बड़ा। मुझे भरोसा खुद पे।
मेरा नाम जावेद खान और मैं मेरठ का हूँ, यूपी का। मैं 2003 में मुंबई में आया था। मेरे घर की परिस्थिति अच्छी नहीं थी। मैं पैदा हुआ तो मेरी माँ मेरे को छोड़ के चली गई। जैसे लगा कि मेरा कोई नहीं है, तो मुझे बराबर ना देखते थे ना पढ़ाई भेजते थे। इसके चक्कर में मेरे को लगा यहाँ पे रहना चाहिए। फिर मैं 2003 में ट्रेन से मुंबई में आया। तो मुंबई में 1-2 महीने में सड़क पे सोया था, ट्रेन में घूमता था। तो एक दिन रात को मेरे को ग्रेसी मम्मी मिली, तो उन्होंने मेरे को बोला कि शेल्टर डॉन बॉस्को जगह एक जगह है जहाँ पे तू रह के पढ़ सकता है। तो फिर मैं उनके साथ आया स्टेडर। मेरे को नया नया सिखाते थे, खेलने मिला, नया क्रिकेट फुटबॉल नया कुछ सीखने मिला। फिर मुझे ये लोग ने स्कूल में डाला फर्स्ट क्लास में, तो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा कि मैं फर्स्ट टाइम मैं स्कूल गया। तो मैं पढ़ना शुरू किया। फिर मैं 10वीं तक आया। 10वीं में मुझे 80% मिला। उसके बाद फादर ने मेरे को बोला कि तू क्या करेगा। मैं बोला फादर मैं हॉस्पिटलिटी करूंगा, मैं होटल और लाइन में बहुत इंटरेस्ट है। तो उसके चक्कर फिर मैंने गुरु नानक खालसा कॉलेज में एडमिशन लिया स्पोर्ट में। मुझे हॉकी खेलना बहुत पसंद है। मैं खालसा का कैप्टन भी रह सका हूँ 2 साल जूनियर कॉलेज का। 12वीं पास हुआ 68% से। और अभी मैं डॉन बॉस्को कुल्ला में एडमिशन लिया हूँ और मैं चाहता हूँ कि आगे सिविल पुरुष लाइन में ज्वाइन करूँ, ताकि मैं अच्छा पैसा कमा, अच्छा खुद का घर खरीदूँ। बस मेरा यही सपना है।
Hi, my name is Sujit Kumar Sharma. I belong from Bihar. I ran away from that place. I came Shelter Don Bosco. I done my studies with support of Shelter Don Bosco, 10th and 12th, a graduation also. And now I am doing Master of Arts in Hindi from University of Mumbai.
So in time we would get these type of children who are least educated, who cannot pay financial fees, and we developed a technical training which was just 3 to 4 months and place them in the industry. This is how we realized that these children were getting empowered. And today, after 25-30 years, it's a joy to see the little ones which we picked up vulnerable on the street, many of them happily married, standing on their own feet and becoming a very respected, settled down with dignity.
Their primary goal is also to reunite the runaway or lost kids with their families. It is a gargantuan task tracing their families with no background information.
Wherever we found boys, we could send back, and they had some connection. Our parents are here and we can get them online. We try to send them back.
मेरा जो गांव है बुल्ढाना जिला पड़ता है, पारखेड़ करके गांव है, महाराष्ट्र के अंदर है। तो मुझे फादर जॉर्ज ने 2009 में मुझे बताया कि तेरा फैमिली है, तेरा घर है, वो लोग अभी तेरे से मिलना चाहते हैं। तो मैं जब गया तभी मेरा देखा घर वीर, तो मुझे ऐसा लगा अभी इस जगह से मैं बड़ा हुआ तो मुझे ऐसा फील नहीं हुआ कि मेरा वो वैसा घर रहेगा। बहुत ज़्यादा ही गरीब परिस्थिति है। मैंने ऐसे कुछ पैसे जमा किए हुए थे शेल्टर से, मेरे कुछ थे 20,000 रुपये, और ऊपर से 5,000 फादर जॉर्ज ने अपनी तरफ से दिए थे। तो उतना देखने के बाद वो लोग को पैसा दिया, वहाँ पे 2 दिन रहा और फिर मैं रिटर्न मुंबई आ गया। मेरा मम्मी महीने 2 महीने में एक बार इधर विजिट करके जाता है। आज मैंने शादी कर ली है, एक छोटा बेबी है मेरा, और आज सेटल हुआ यहाँ पे, और सब शेल्टर की बदौलत है।
Sandeep, Javed, Rajesh and so on found their families but chose to stay back in shelter or stay in touch with their mentors. Shelter continues to be their home much after the boys have grown into working adults or professionals. There are some touching stories of boys who were left to die but were given a new lease of life by the Don Bosco fathers.
My name is Ejaz and I used to live in shelter Don Bosco some years ago. When I have completed my HSC exam, then I left shelter. I have learned many things from shelter, like driving and singing, drawing, like how to behave in the society. After I become bachelor, I started part-time job like driving for call center. Then I have started a small business and I have bought two cars. One I drive, the other one of my friend is driving. I am so happy now with my life. People think these street kids behave very badly, but I am also a street kid and I responsibly live in the society. I don't do any crime. I speak very politely with the customers. These all things I have learned from shelter and fathers.
While the youth today hang out with friends, these fathers choose to hang out with different kind of friends. It would not be an exaggeration to say that these fathers are more at home fathering these children by ensuring their all-rounded development. They lend more than a helping hand so that the children learn to stand on their own feet. They don't look at it merely as service to society, but a mission to mold the lives of the marginalized with a heart of gold and love of God, as they see everyone as a child of God.
As we journey on, and these children are our children, and we need to put the best resources into our children. And if we invest our time, our money, our volunteering, our resources into empowering the vulnerable children, and I'm sure our country, as we are marching towards being a developed country, these children will not be left behind. And we need to take them together with us so that they become part of our India.
It's all a dream and illusion now. It must come true sometime soon, somehow. All across the land dawns a brand new morn. This comes to pass when a child is born.
If life is a journey, the road may seem long and labored. But when light and love is shown to walk the street, the destination becomes clear and the goal becomes a reality. For these children, living on the streets was a harsh reality, and finding a home was a dream. Their route to shelter became a reality when they found their own home with love and dedication of the staff of Shelter Don Bosco.
Think about the generations and to say we want to make it a better place for our children and our children's children so that they know it's a better world for them and think if they can make it a better place.
There's a place in your heart, and I know that it is love. And this place is much brighter than tomorrow. And if you really try, you'll find there's no need to cry. In this place, you feel there's no hurt or sorrow. There are ways to get